Hotelier on the Grill.
Good afternoon, this is Hotelier on the Grill and I'm Stuart J. Raj, and today we're in Siem Riep in Cambodia speaking with the general manager of La Résidence dAngkor Hotel, a beautiful hotel. I'd like to welcome Miss Carla Petzold Beck.
Thank you very much.
Rather than me introducing you, would you be able to just give a quick, very brief introduction of who you are? Not too much, we'll get into that during the interview.
Okay, I'm Swiss-born, half German, half American, and come from a hotelier family, as we will get in later. I've been living in Siem Riep for 1 year now, working with Orient Express for 1 year, and prior to that I was with GHM in Bali and in Malaysia, and prior to that on the other side of the world.
So a person of the world.
Citizen of the world, yes.
Citizen of the world. So let's just get straight into it. We have 12 standard questions. The first answer is normally the best. So whatever you feel to answer that. The first question is, where did you first cut your teeth in the hotel industry?
Well, that's an easy one because I have it in my blood. It's in my DNA. My father is in the industry. My uncle's in the industry. My grandfather was in the industry. My brother is sort of indirectly chosen the industry, now more restaurant than hotel side. So I think having been brought up in the field of hoteliers and spending vacations with hoteliers as a young girl, traveling a lot, of course, boats, planes, trains, automobiles, I sort of got a really good liking for it.
Right, so you've got it in the DNA.
Yeah.
So we'll question 2 then. What was your first big break?
My first big break was actually exactly today, on the 11th of February, 2004, when I left Germany, Munich, Germany, for Nicaragua to start my first attempt and step at as a general manager.
In Nicaragua.
In Nicaragua, opening up a boutique eco-lodge on the Pacific coast. And so I first went directly to Costa Rica to do sort of like the training for it with an operating sister hotel of the company I was working for, and then I opened it in the course of 8 months with the architect and the owners, and hired and trained all of the staff, all of the 56 staff members in Nicaragua, and taught them how to set a table and make a bed and clean a toilet and the guides not as much, but they had their own knowledge. But yeah, that was my first big break.
And so you trained them, you spoke Spanish with them?
Yes, I spoke Spanish. Well, that's where I learned. To tip the scales in terms of my fluency was very, very, I was very French focused because I'd lived in Paris before, so I had to sort of rechannel my brain, and it was very interesting because they learned English as I sort of learned Spanish in the course of opening up this hotel. So, yeah.
Would have been an amazing experience.
It was.
So question 3 then, that was 10 years ago, I guess, 2004 that you mentioned. Why were you able to make it to where you are now today, general manager here in Siem Riep, where others perhaps have failed?
Wow, perseverance. The love of the unknown, the risk taking of challenges. You know, there's, as they say, no risk, no fun. Sort of the old adage, and I think it does speak true to us moving around the globe. Yeah, we in the end, being a GM is always the same. Duties, not chores, tasks, responsibilities.
Right.
But it's where you're in and who you're working with that you then learn a new culture, a new type of management style. I think that also is innate in you, but you don't know about it until you're actually faced with using that part of you in a certain different cultural setting. So managing Nicaraguans is obviously very different than managing Malaysians.
Right.
But then again, managing Nicaraguans I find is the same as managing Cambodians, because they both had very similar pasts. They both come from war-torn countries and upbringings, and their aspirations, or the lack of, I'm sorry to say, is the same. Their way they go at their daily tasks. It's similar. So you think that why would that connection come in and fall into place? So I think, which then again, you tap into how things were managed back 10 years ago, right?
Right. So being over there, you mentioned in war-torn countries, or the countries that had been, Nicaragua, Cambodia, you've probably got your challenges as well as the good moments. Question number 4, could you tell us about one of your darkest moments in your career? This is to help people who,
Yeah. Well, the worst fear of any general manager is what we call internally a cold checkout, and that's a death. And I thankfully, knock on wood, didn't have a dying client or guest, but I actually had a dying employee or an outsourced electrician who died on my watch. And I would say that was in Bali. And Bali, of course, are very, very spiritual, very, very religious people with the Hinduism that they follow. And he died on during the day, and I didn't think he did. And we put him into my car and sent him off to the clinic. I just thought he was in shock. He looked like he was in shock. And then they all came back, and all of them basically took about a year off of work because they were so freaked out by the experience because they've been driving with this dead person in my car. So that was the darkest moment because it was unfortunately fortunately for me, not a permanent staff. Unfortunately for the family of the electrician that was hired to come in, with 5 kids, a wife in Indonesia on the Java side. So that was really a terrible, terrible moment that I remember. It was so surreal because I really thought he was, going to be fine. I mean, everybody gets electrocuted, but
and that had so many cultural aspects to it as well. So, question number 5 then: how did you get through it?
We had to do a lot of cleansing, a lot of spiritual healing. We had invited the priests in, and of course, we had to also then hide it from the guests who watched the procession in our lobby where he was electrocuted at the spot. And then they would ask, what are you doing? And we said, oh, it's just something, that we have to do. So they, of course, were riveted by this procession of white-bearded, chanting Hindu higher priests coming in and cleansing the place. And then, of course, the staff members that were in touch, like literally had touched him. They were cleansed, and then I was cleansed because I was the driver of the vehicle that he was driven in, and then it was a very, very long, over the course of 3-4 days that we were really very respecting the deities and respecting the spirits in very, very true Balinese style. So.
Wow, that's amazing. Little did the guests know.
Yeah.
Question number 6: what drives you?
I would personally say passion, as corny as it sounds. I think I'm driven by smiling staff and by super excited guests, and I interact. I'm a very front of house GM, so I'm trying to meet and greet not all of the guests. It's very hard to do that in 120 guest arrival, let's say 62 rooms, but at least as many as I can. I think passion simply because I'm still in it. If I were in it for the money and regulated hours, I would have stepped out 15, 20 years ago and gone down the path that a lot of my colleagues at college went down, which was more in the direction of real estate and finance. To keep on slogging away and be working during Christmas and New Year's and all these times when everybody else gets to take off.
Right.
And I don't mind doing it. That pretty much says I really love it. And I did step out of the industry for 10 months. I took a 8-month sabbatical before I moved here. And I just realized, after 8 months I had itchy fingers and I just wanted to get back to doing something and having a team and just knowing that I'm, I go home with a sense of accomplishment. Yeah, that especially I think since Cambodia, with the amount of corporate social responsibility we do a lot for the community.
Right.
We introduce the community to our staff, to our guests a lot.
Right.
And that's really especially an additional satisfaction that I never really had before, except for Nicaragua.
Right.
Because that's what we did back then too, with the education and bringing in kids. And
we noticed that yesterday there were a group of kids here.
Yeah, we support Together for Cambodia, which is an unbelievable organization of a young Spanish lady that has 40 orphans under her control and her watchful eye, and does the most amazing things with, with benefactors that she's met through the La Résidence when they come here.
No, it's definitely impressive. I think we can put a. That's okay. I think we can put a link to their.
To their website.
To the website from this as well. Question number 7. Do you have a mentor, and if so, who and why?
I have several, and the reason why I think is because everybody that goes through the industry that we go through, we go in stages. So you have sort of your 20s, your 30s, and now unfortunately my 40s have started. And I think in my study years, I studied hotel management.
Right.
It was definitely my grandfather, who was also from the industry on an educational level. He remembered, when he was a professor, he remembered every single student's names, for instance. Something that rubbed off me, but unfortunately with room numbers, not names. I remember I know everybody's room number, but necessarily names that falls a bit hard, but that definitely rubbed off me. And then I would say after that, with my first career, moved back to Switzerland, where I was born. I would say my father guided me through my first stepping stones of getting my feet on the right track. Being in Siem Riep for a whole year of skiing all day and working the bar all night. That has to come to a dead end, and he got me out of it before I became a ski bum and a bar queen. And he said, "Let's, I didn't put you through Cornell for 4 years to do that. Let's get you out." And he did. I mean, not he did. He just said, I suggest you looking elsewhere. And so I started, and that's when I first went and lived in Germany.
Right.
And worked for Kempinski and had the most amazing career jump with them that really propelled me onwards to where I am nowadays. I mean, I was 30 when I was first GM, so that's pretty young. And of course, as a female on top of it, that adds on. But,
and it went down okay then?
Yeah, it went down okay.
Yeah.
The Nicaraguans are nice.
Yeah.
So that was sort of my middle mentor, and then I would say my last one was actually one of my GMs at Kempinski that really also believed in me. There again, I was a very young kid, fresh out of college, and he gave me an enormous amount of responsibility and really believed that I could hack it, and I did, and we did a lot of state visits, and I've met a lot of famous people, and I was MOD and all these things that you're normally not until a later stage. He figured, he trusted I could do it, and I did, and I think that gives you a lot of self-confidence in especially in the swaying 20s when you're not so sure who you are, and are you this, are you that, to have somebody who's, back then he was younger than I am now, but you think, oh my goodness, he's like that, the person way up there. I mean, nowadays are very hard to have these the days like Kurt Wachtleiter with 41 years of being at the helm of a hotel, then people tend to jump around a bit too much.
Everybody mentions Kurt.
Yeah, well, because it's an enigma for our industry. I mean, that's practically unheard of. It's a bit like Kurt Ritter from SAS being 30 plus years CEO of a company. That's really, really very rare, and unfortunately very rare. I feel that we all have very short attention spans or whatever it is that makes us have to run around the globe all the time every 2-3 years to find something new.
Question number 8. Can you tell us of an experience in your career that's really made you proud?
I would go back. I would say definitely go back briefly to Nicaragua, being my first stint as a GM, to have opened it up in a country where I did not know the language as my maternal language, where I obviously had lots of obstacles to deal with.
Right.
To create something out of 3 piles. It was 3 piles of rubble. One was stones, one was sand, and one was logs of trees, and out of that came this hotel. And that was not my own doing per se with my own hands, but that what went in it, and that what we were able to then offer to our guests at the end when it opened. That was quite an amazing moment in my life. And I would say the second one would be in Malaysia when I started with GHM, and I pulled the Carcosa Srinagar, the property I was managing, out of a huge negative into a positive, and actually made a profit for the 2 years that I managed it there. So it was a government-owned hotel because it's a heritage site, but that was quite a moment of pride. Also, again, being a very young female GM
In Malaysia.
Malaysian country, exactly,
Yeah.
and then pulling out all stops to get the hotel back on track, because it was just losing millions before.
So question number 9. There are a lot of people learning to be in GM in hotelier school, and other GMs listening. What's the best advice that you could give somebody looking to be a successful GM?
Start at the bottom. Don't come out. Of course, I was surrounded by lots of arrogant Cornellians thinking now that they have the diploma from an Ivy League school that they can get an immediate GM position. Yeah, you can have a 21-year-old as a GM, but they're not going to know anything. So I think anybody, like the story you told me about the room, if you start at the bottom and you don't fear getting your hands dirty, and you can, roll up your sleeves and really pack on with your team,
Right.
and prove to them that you can do it. I can go into the kitchen and chop an onion just as fast as the boys can, because I did it for so many years. I had to peel asparagus and cases of that, and chop and do and hear, which now, falls into place where I walk into the kitchen, I can see when they're stressed, or my background does come from sales and marketing more than from F&B or front office, but I went through it all as a management trainee myself in Thailand, actually, in 1994, or be it through the roles I had before I became a GM. It was a very multitasking role. It was a role that's another thing I also recommend, is that you don't just go down one route. You snoop into all directions and see what fits you the best, and see which one you blossom up in the most, and take that, and thankfully for me it was convention sales and banquets, so there was a whole influx of F&B, of sales, of front office, of revenue management, because I'd walk into work and we'd be minus 75 rooms. I mean, where do you want to put 75 people if you don't have them, and things like that gave me the background to, when I say something now, that I can actually say it with knowledge and not just by hearsay. And a lot of people come out with a lot of theoretical knowledge, having learned their textbooks inside and out, but have they actually sat down with 7 different personalities and really cranked out a group work that you have to deal with in real life too? I mean, I have 145 different personalities here, so 7's nothing. And
So learn from them.
Learn from the beginning.
Asparagus and onions.
Yeah, exactly. Asparagus and onions, cleaning toilets, being a driver, actually a butler is the number one first start, is to get yourself into that, because that's really where you learn everything. But yeah, start from scratch.
Question number 10. On the flip side, what's some of the what's the worst advice, or what's one thing that you see GMs doing wrong from the people that you see in the industry? Is there anything that GMs should avoid doing?
Yeah, it's doing too many reports. Unfortunately, nowadays we have statistics on everything, and companies that thrive on statistics about everything. And I have friends who are sleepless because they slipped down in one rank in TripAdvisor overnight. I have other friends that are sleepless because they didn't break the RevPAR goal that they had been set to achieve. And personally, I'm just so not at all steered by that. I'm steered by what, again, goes back to my passion, is about making guests' experience here really happy. And they're not going to see that if I'm stuck behind a PC cranking out numbers. I find it's gotten much too numerical, much too reports based, and we really are missing the true essence of what it was to be a hotelier, and that is actually to be a hostess. You're hosting guests in your makeshift house, your home away from home. You're giving them something to eat, you're giving them a comfortable bed, and you're giving them a shower to clean, and that has completely gotten lost in the plot by all these rankings and this. And if the turn down cookie isn't that big but that big, and now they put half of presents on pillows, and if you don't get your tie matching this from your last visit and all that, it's gotten too commercial in a sense that we've gotten the real reason behind it.
We've learnt a lot about who you are in this brief 20 minutes so far, but if you weren't in the hotel industry, and this is for question 11, what's your ideal alternate career?
I would be a surgeon. Yeah. I've never been squeamish on blood. I've always had a very quiet hand. I find the meticulous attention to detail and perfectionism needed to be a surgeon something that I sometimes, unfortunately, apply in the hotel industry. It doesn't quite work, but I've always been absolutely fascinated by surgeons, by what they have a life in below their two hands, and it's either they can make it or break it. And I just find something that's like a helicopter pilot or the responsibility that I have is so small in comparison to the responsibility of a surgeon, or the responsibility.
Put your skills where your mouth is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's wonderful. We've that's all from the sort of hotel end. But this last question, number 12, it's a little bit from left field, but it also gives us an insight into who our hoteliers are. Question number 12: what app are you currently using, or is one that's grabbed your attention, or you couldn't live without, that you'd like to mention, or that you could mention to our listeners?
Does Mahjong count?
Yeah.
I'm actually, very honestly, as you can see, I'm still a BlackBerry user, so I'm not an app addict. I do have an iPad, and on that is, I kid you not, Mahjong and Sudoku. Those are the two that I absolutely will lose myself in when I'm waiting for planes and gates and if I don't have my book with me or something. I would say the one I would go to most often is currency exchange, time zone, because my family lives all over the world.
Right.
Skype, because I speak with my family all over the world.
Right. But you can tell you've come from Indonesia in true BlackBerry fashion.
Yeah, and I can't get over it. I cannot do the tapping, the screen tapping thing, and I will have to one day, I know. But I would say that would probably be
that's good enough.
The ones that, and then it just shows that I don't use them necessarily for work. For work, I do just because I'm at work when I'm trying to figure out timing and currencies and things as such. But
that's great. It gives us
but mind
you can
games,
tell a person by the apps they use.
Really? Oh goodness.
Well, that was fascinating
Not
hearing
Geo.
about hearing about how you made it to this point, Carla. Thank you very much for being on Hotelier on the Grill, and
My pleasure.
Thank you for hosting us at this beautiful property.
My pleasure. Anytime. Send us lots of people.
We will. Thank you. Bye bye.
How many? So this is another.
Hotelier on the Grill.